This is a short one like me. Dudes with Brews on the Porch presents Michael Brews.
Dude. Craft Brews and Casual Conversations joined with us again, I think, for the fourth time, maybe. It's Gough from our friend in Australia. How you doing?
I'm very well, and yourself?
I'm doing great, man. You got another great new comedy out that you just released, How to Treat Women. Give us the history on that a little bit and tell us why you decided to make this.
Well, I figured who better to talk about the very controversial subject of feminism than a blind 38-year-old single straight male. It seems like I was born to make this movie, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so too. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was definitely some there's some satire in it. There's a lot of humor in it, and I guess in Australia, in America we have a lot of things like you said, a lot of new wave feminism and things like that. Is that kind of like what's going on in Australia a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think that's probably all over the world, but I also think it's really important to still have a sense of humor about these kind of subjects. So while I'm, making fun of all of that kind of stuff, it's important that people sort of put things in perspective and go, well, it is a serious subject, but we can also have a bit of a laugh about it as well. So that's kind of, whenever I'm writing a lot of my scripts, that's kind of my goal, is to make sure that we're taking a serious subject. As you've seen, we've done prostitution in the past, and we've done the environment and drugs, so subjects that people are really uptight about, but then I rip them apart and tear them apart with humor, and humor from every angle too, to make sure that, everybody gets picked on equally. So that's sort of my goal when I'm writing these things. And the same goes for this one. It's important that, it is obviously feminism and women's rights and all that sort of stuff is very important, but it's also important to have a sense of humor and have a bit of a laugh as well, and not take life so seriously.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one. And you know what, with the comedy behind this one, I think it's pretty obvious, that you don't mean what you're saying or something like that. Right. You're presenting it in a funny way that makes people, laugh about it, but also think, oh, maybe, because I definitely, when, there's the scene where you have the individuals in the hallway there, the man and the woman, and the guy's just going on, and it's like, I've seen so many people have those similar conversations before, and you just want to slap the guy.
Yeah, that's very true indeed. So you'd be surprised how long that scene took to write, because there's a lot of slang terminology in there that, I did have to do a little bit of research in the Urban Dictionary to find a few slang terms that I wasn't aware of. But, it's true. Look, everything I do, everything on the Beernuts Productions website is all done with humor. And like you said, I think when people watch the film and watch any of our films, they can see that we're not being nasty or malicious in any way. It's all meant in humor and in fun. And that's really important because, like I say, life is a serious business. And so it's good if you can sit down and have a bit of a laugh for 20 minutes and just, take the load off. And so hopefully I'm able to do that for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing, too, is like you have you kind of incorporate people's parents and their expectations and how they might view their own kid. And I thought it was pretty interesting because I've definitely experienced that with, certain women in my life where I feel like their parents have like way higher expectations for them than they would, for example, like my sister, they wouldn't think she knows how to do anything, but their expectations for me is like, oh yeah, he can do whatever he wants. I'm not saying that's true, but I've seen that plenty of times in it. The way you did it, I was just like, wow, like this definitely just reflects a lot of things that I've seen.
Yeah, well, that scene also, I think a lot of people can relate to that particular scene for that exact reason. I think it just doesn't go for feminism, but it also goes for disability. I've seen a lot of people who I've grown up with who have disabilities, have the same kind of treatment delivered to them, where people think they can't do certain things just because they have a disability, even though they've proven in the past that they absolutely can. So, I think that scene works on a number of different levels. So yeah, it was it's probably that's why it's sort of up front and center, that particular scene of the film.
Is that something you've kind of experienced? I mean, you're visually impaired. You're a filmmaker. You're a writer. Have you experienced a lot of doubt in your life?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, that one was. I know the film is about how to treat women and feminism and whatnot, but that particular scene, I mean, that could have been me as a young fella standing there in front of people. So yeah, absolutely. So that's probably why it came so easy, that particular scene to write, is because that's happened to me countless times. So it was pretty straightforward for me to write. I mean, it is extreme, obviously, because that's where the comedy comes, is the extreme nature of the scene. But yeah, absolutely, I've been a part of it and witnessed that many, many times.
It's always a good thing too, and then you can come back to those people and say, "Hey, look at my fucking website loaded with movies." You know,
it's very true. It's funny actually, because I was having a chat to one of the actors, and in every script I write, there's a little joke in there that's sort of just for me, like something that will tickle me, but nobody else on the planet will get, because it's just a little joke for me. You know what I mean? I always sneak something in there just for me. And you're quite right. In that particular scene, that's kind of me sticking the middle finger up at all of those people that told me that, I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So it's a kind of a little bit of a fuck you back to everybody, as well as being a part of the film. It's my own little personal little thing in there as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. So I guess kind of to walk me through some of the encounters that you've had with women in your life. Do you have any sisters or anything like that?
Yeah, I've got an older sister. Yeah, I've got an older sister. She's 2 years older than me. She's a hairdresser, and so people, obviously, you've seen what I look like. I've got a big bald head, and so I used to storm into her hairdressing salon, and I used to thump the reception desk and yell out, "I wish to register a complaint." And everybody would turn around and be all shocked. And then she'd say, "Oh, it's just my dickhead brother, just ignore him." So, yeah, that would happen quite often, because I thought that was hilarious.
Well, how did she feel about the film when she saw it?
I haven't actually. I know she's seen it, because she downloaded a copy only the other day. So I know she's seen it, but as yet I haven't received any feedback from her. So we'll see. Maybe she might be pondering as we speak, wondering whether she'll approve or not, because she's a tough critic, my sister.
Oh yeah, she gives you some good feedback sometimes.
Well, I don't know if we'd call it good. I'd say it probably is more on the harsh side of the scale, but I think that's what siblings are meant to do.
Yeah, I think so too. I also have an older sister who's 2 years older than me, and
well, you know.
Yeah, I was kind of the one that everyone kind of thought she was the person that was going to have like a kid early and do all these kind of things, the stereotypical kind of black sheep stuff. But then it turns out it was me. I did it all.
That wouldn't have gone down very well. She wouldn't have liked you for a little while there, taking all of her thunder.
Yeah, I know. I stole it all from her. So then when she was unexpectedly pregnant the first time around with her soon-to-be husband at the time, she was like all worried because she wasn't married yet, and I'm like, lady, like I had a kid in high school, like calm down.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's always good to have a little bit of sibling rivalry and stuff like that. It's always good. But with this film, have you gotten any harsh criticism yet from it, or any negative feedback?
No. People actually have been really enjoying it and laughing a lot, which is obviously very good, because that's the goal. It's a comedy film. But I've the people who I've spoken to who have watched it have really enjoyed it, which is great. It's that they get the jokes, they understand the sort of the kind of message that's in there, and they really enjoy it, which is fantastic. After all, that's the point, because a lot of hard work goes into making a film like this. So getting the right cast and crew and all of that kind of stuff together. So I'm really pleased when people watch it and they really enjoyed it. Gives me a nice little buzz.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I had a lot of good chuckles in it while watching it. And it's a shorter film, about 22 minutes or so. So it's kind of like watching like an episode of The Office. It's packed with the humor though, which I really appreciate.
Oh, that's great. No, I'm thrilled that you enjoyed it. And yeah, you're quite right. I try and make my films about that length because I think I think if it was any longer, people would start getting a little bit bored, and if it was any shorter, people would start going, "Oh, I wanted a little bit more." There should have been a bit more to it. So I think that's a pretty good length for that sort of style of film because it's a mockumentary style. So if it was, like I say, if it was any longer, it might start to get a little bit tedious. So it's good to keep it short and sharp. And so 20 minutes is a good length for that kind of a project, I reckon.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a perfect amount of time. And I mean, like I said, I watch The Office a lot. I don't know if you've ever seen The American Office, but I watch it. I've seen it probably 5 times through maybe. So I feel like with that kind of style, it's important to kind of, capture what you're trying to do in a good amount of time without overdoing it, without making it too short. And I think, nowadays people have shorter attention spans for these kind of things too. So I think I thought it was great. I liked it a lot.
Well, no, that's fantastic. I'm really, really pleased. And hopefully your listeners obviously jump online to the Beernuts Productions website, which is just beernutsproductions.com, and they download a copy and they share a similar view to yourself. So, yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. And then, they can explore all the other ones that are on there too. You have, like you were saying before, the prostitution and then drug use and all that kind of stuff. And it's all kind of the mockumentary type of genre.
Yeah, I really like that kind of genre because it just gives you the flexibility. I mean, not everything on the website is that. I mean, we've got some audio sketches, downloads that people can get, and some of the other films are different again. I mean, I've done a 90-minute documentary, which is obviously a serious film, but at the moment I've been really enjoying doing the mockumentary style because it gives you, like I said earlier, it gives you the chance to grab a subject that people are really touchy about and really rip it apart and have some fun with it and try and, sort of turn the mirror on itself, if that makes sense, to let people see that, they can be serious about it, but they can also have a sense of humor about it too. And so that's why, because, a lot of people say when I told them I was doing a film about feminism, they're like, oh, wow, that's going to be a hard sell. I don't know how you're going to go about doing that. But it's just about, making it funny and making it, making sure that people get the jokes and all that sort of stuff. So it's I like doing that, grabbing a subject that people are really sensitive about and just, tearing it apart from every single angle. So, yeah.
Yeah. So how kind of walk me through your writing process on this one. Like, how do you make, a comedy like in this topic without being too, without having like the male individuals being like too overly, like graphic or nasty about it? How do you present it in a fun way, but also, getting towards the line a little bit without crossing it too much?
Yeah, well, firstly, I start off by picking my subject. So in this particular instance, I thought we'll go with feminism. And then what I do is I think, okay, well, how am I going to tackle it? So I thought, well, I want to look at, I want to, not program, but I want to have it with like segments this time around. So I've got like the 4 different segments. I've got the segment on communication. I've got the segment on encouragement. I've got the segment on equal rights. And I've got the segment on, what's the 4th one, is the contact, physical contact and just contact in general. So I'm like, okay, well, I've got those 4 segments now. How am I going to go about, portraying those? So the encouragement was the first scene, which we discussed. And then you've got the communication with the guy and the girl in the hallway. And I thought a business kind of a situation would be good for that one. And then the equal rights is obviously the one with the police officer outside showing, how he should or should not discriminate against people. And then the last one obviously being contact. And I thought, well, I like the 2 characters from the business scene. So I thought I'd use those 2 again in a similar sort of style. So yeah, it's about sort of, and then obviously you've got your opener and your closer. So yeah, that was kind of my thought process when I was writing. It was, I thought I'd do it in specific segments. This one, I thought it would work better in that particular way.
Yeah, I think it did work really well. They were all very funny, and I like that you brought back the characters from the hallway back into that like real last segment too, because it pushed the narrative a little bit more, but it also, and it brought back some familiar faces that we just saw. So I thought that was really funny. What was your like casting process for this one? Did you use some people you've worked with in the past?
Yeah, so there's 8 actors, 9 if you include me, but 8 actors, and 3 of them I've worked with before, and the other 5 I hadn't. So Phil I've worked with quite a lot. The fellow that played the father, I really like him because he's got that sort of pompous, English, arrogant, dickhead kind of style. He's got that down to a T. He does that really well. So if ever I need that kind of character, I just sort of call up Phil now. I don't really need to see anybody else because I know that he'll nail it. So he was a walk-up start for that particular role. With the couple in the hallway, for example, I didn't know anybody who I thought really suited those 2 roles. So I sent out the brief to the agents and auditioned a bunch of people. And actually, Jackson, who plays the guy in that scene, he was the first person I saw, and he was fantastic. And then I had a day full of other actors coming in, and I thought to myself, well, I'm kind of wasting everybody else's time because Jackson really nailed it, and nobody even got close to what he did. So for him, it was just a straight up easy decision. And Kira was great in her audition. So yeah, it was just about like I say, 3 of them I'd worked with before. So yeah, I got Serene in, who I'd worked with before, to audition for the Woman 2 part with the police officer, and she was great because she's done some stunt work before, and I needed someone who could do sort of physical kind of acting for that particular scene. So she was great. And Katerina I'd worked with before, who played the mother, and she was terrific. So I knew that she'd do a good job for me as well. But yeah, for the other roles, it's just opening them up to the auditions and hoping that I get the right actors come through, which I did. I mean, I thought they all did a really, really wonderful job. They all really suited their roles really well. They killed it. So yeah, I was really pleased.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the choices there. I thought they all did a really good job, and they were all had the good comedic timing, and it was very enjoyable. So you work hard on a lot of these films. You spend a lot of time writing them. You direct them, you act in them a lot of times. How long of a break do you take between projects normally, or are you already looking for topics for the next subject matter?
Yeah, no, we're going to start pre-production on because this one's actually been going really well with downloads. People have been really enjoying it, and so that means that we can, because my business model is a little bit different to a normal business, and in fact, I'm sure any financial planner or accountant would probably recommend people not do what I do, which is essentially all the money that I make from one project then goes into making the next project. So, it depends on sales and downloads as to how quickly I can do the next film. And this one's been going really well and has been really popular, which means we're starting pre-production on our next project in about a week's time. So that's really, really cool. So it's going to be a really short turnaround this time around, which is great. So yeah, that makes life really cool because obviously I want to keep motoring along and doing. I mean, Beernuts Productions is my full-time gig. It's my job. So I need to keep it going as best I can, and obviously that's on me to make the projects as good as I can make them. Because otherwise, obviously, if I don't get any downloads, then there is no more Beernuts Productions. So it's on me to make the projects as good as I can make them. So yeah, it all depends on sales and downloads as to how quickly I can get stuck into the next one. So luckily for me, I can really get cracking on the next one almost right away, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. So when you write things, do you kind of work on one thing at a time, or do you kind of get different ideas and then maybe like just make a side note of, oh, I could do this on this one, or is it just one project at a time?
No, pretty much that. So if I have an idea, I'll write it down, and then so I've got on my computer, I've got like a lot of different scripts and ideas already written, and then it's about going through different things and seeing if that would work on this amount of budget that I've got, or if there's a little sketch idea, could I expand that into a film, or just going through everything and seeing what I've already got sort of written down, and then seeing what I can either make or what I can expand on, or if that, triggers another thought or whatever. Because I was actually chatting to a scriptwriter here in Australia, but back when I was only about 18, there was a very well-known, he's passed away now, unfortunately, but a very well-known scriptwriter who I became good friends with, and he said to me, never delete anything. He said, because you never just know, in 10 years' time, you could come back to that script or sketch or idea, and what you couldn't think of 10 years ago, you could think of now, so he said, never delete anything, and always, just skim over different ideas and work whenever you got a chance, because he says you never know when a bolt of lightning might hit you and come to you over something. I mean, so you could sit there with an idea and think that's really great, but you don't know how to finish it or what to do in the middle or whatever. Well, just let it be and let it sort of simmer in the back of your brain for however long it takes. It might be 6 months, it might be 6 years. And then when the inspiration hits you and go, that's what that script needs, then you can do it. So I've taken that advice, and as a result, I've got tons of things already written down. And so, yeah, when it's time to make the next project, I just go through what I've got and see what inspires and what I can tinker with and what would work pretty much. So that's kind of, I mean, the last film I did before this one, the How to Land That Dream Job, that all started with, I'd done, I think it was 3 or 4 sketches of just job interviews, like little funny sketches of job interviews. And then when I was going through things to see what I could make, I thought, well, why don't I flush that out into a whole film and do 16 different job interviews? And that's obviously how that film all came about and got made. And so kind of similar with this one in a way. Like I said, I knew that I wanted to do something about feminism, and I thought that the segments was the way to go about it. And so then it was just a matter of how am I going to flush this out? So that's kind of how this one sort of came out as well. So, yeah, but that's kind of the way I go about doing it all.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely very busy. Would you ever be interested in making like a podcast war mockumentary, since you're on this podcast all the time, and I feel like everyone kind of has a podcast if you really think about it. I feel like there's sometimes like you could have like the independent podcasters versus like Joe Rogan and all them and really create a good war.
In a cage fighting UFC sort of style of knock down, drag him out kind of a war sort of situation.
That'd be pretty funny. Joe Rogan would mess me up pretty quick, I think, in that situation. But
Well, I don't know. Don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, you're the dudes with brews. You have a couple of beers down your gullet, and all of a sudden you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. You'd be able to withstand a bit more of a beating, I reckon. He might tire himself out.
Yeah, that's possible. He's getting up there. He's in his 50s, so maybe I could get a couple in on him. Who knows?
Yeah, it'd be like Rumble in the Jungle. You're Ali taking the punches, and then when George Foreman, when Joe gets a bit worn out, you just come in with a quick 1-2, and all of a sudden he's down for the count.
Yeah, and then he creates grills.
And then he creates a sandwich grill and makes $1 million. So yeah,
I never knew George Foreman was a boxer until later in life. I only knew him. I was just like, wait, that's the guy I make my burger patties on in my apartment. Oh, he's a boxer.
There's actually a really cool documentary called When We Were Kings about Rumble in the Jungle. Okay. It won an Oscar, actually. I think it might have been back in the late 90s it was made. But it's a really interesting documentary. So if ever anybody out there has an interest in boxing or sporting documentaries and they haven't seen it, it's definitely one to watch, because it's really interesting, and it shows you George Foreman. He was a scary and big and strong man, and his personality after Rumble in the Jungle, after he lost that fight, his personality like flipped 180, and he became a really nice and soft gentleman. So it's funny how that fight sort of changed him as a person. But and then he, as you rightly say, he's gone on to make $1 gajillion with the sandwich grills. So, good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a filmmaker and writer, comedy writer and stuff like that, what do you like to watch outside of, you get a moment to sit down and watch a TV show or a movie? What are you watching?
Well, I like, obviously, I'm a comedy nerd, so comedy would be the first thing I would always go to. I also like darker kind of stuff. I'm a bit of a twisted kind of an individual, so if something's a little bit dark and a bit twisted, I kind of enjoy that as well. And I'm also, I like watching true stories, not boring reenactment stuff, but like if there's a good documentary, or also, like, I mean, yesterday, in fact, I went to the cinema with a friend of mine and we saw Richard Jewell, the new Clint Eastwood film about the Atlanta bombings at the Olympics. Sweet. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good film. I like Clint Eastwood as a filmmaker. And so, you know, I like those sort of true story kind of films where, you know, I think they can be really interesting as well, because sometimes the truth is more unbelievable than fiction, you know. I mean, you can see something and you can, if you didn't realize it was a true story, you wouldn't believe that it could actually happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like to, I'm a big comedy guy as well, so a lot of stand up and, but mostly, I mean, if I can stay awake long enough, I'll try to watch. Me and my lady are trying to watch all the Marvel movies right now. She's never seen any of them. I've seen them all.
Okay.
And she's so, but I have troubles staying awake when I watch things. So I tend to watch reruns of shit I've seen over and over again, because it's like, oh, I don't miss anything if I fall asleep. But
see, I'm not a big comic book guy, but on the flip side, the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix,
amazing.
I went to watch that because I was told it was more of a story more than a comic book thing. And that was dark and twisted, and I loved every second of that film. I thought that was incredible, that movie.
There's a lot of parts in there in that movie too, where, because I saw that in the theaters, and there's parts that I wanted to laugh because I thought it was funny, but no one else. No one else laughed.
I'm with you. Yeah, there was a few little twisted sort of comedy lines which I really liked too. I'm with you 100%, and I sort of had a bit of a chuckle. And there was maybe one or two other people in the theater who was laughing, but everybody else was not. So it's one of those things. I think it's a Todd Phillips thing, because the director of that, I mean, he did Road Trip and The Hangover and all those sorts of films. So he's a comedy kind of guy. So he sort of squeezed in a few little dark and twisted jokes, which I did appreciate, and it sounds like you did as well.
My favorite part was with the scene where he's in the apartment with the little guy. And after that whole ordeal goes on, and then he's just like, oh, yeah, I'm going on this show. I was like, oh, that's funny. That is so funny. But
like nothing had ever happened.
Right. I thought it was an amazing movie. I really liked it a lot. It's probably, one of my, when it comes to, like, you know, quote unquote DC movies, that's probably hands down one of my favorites so far.
Oh, yeah, well, like I say, I'm not a comic book guy, so very rarely would I go and watch a movie like that, because it's just not something. I mean, because of my eyesight, action's not really my genre. So where there's, you know, people flying through the air, like James Bond and stuff like that, I've got no interest in, because I just I miss out on a lot of the action. So it's kind of, I miss out on the main part of the film. I miss out on, so it's kind of pointless for me to go and watch it. So I don't really dig it that much, but. This one wasn't that kind of a film at all. Joker was fantastic because it was a proper story, and it was twisted, and it was dark, and it was great. And the way it was made, you kind of, half of you felt sorry for him, and then he's doing bad things, but then you felt like when he kills the people in the subway train, you kind of think, well, good for you, those people are being jerks, but he's just killed people, which is bad. So I mean, it's conflicting, which I love. I like that kind of thing. So it was a really enjoyable film. I liked it a lot. I'm glad it won quite a few awards, because it should have. It was great. Yeah,
I agree. I definitely like movies and TV shows that ultimately you end up rooting for the bad guy in the end. I think that says something about people.
Yeah, Breaking Bad is probably the best example that I can think of when it comes to TV, because I was obsessed with that show. I thought Breaking Bad was just phenomenal, and that's the classic anti-hero. I mean, the man is a drug dealer of the worst kind and turns into this just crazy person, and yet there's part of you kind of rooting for him at the same time. It's just it's unbelievably well made, and that because I agree with you. I kind of like those sort of anti-hero type pieces as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always Team Walt, and I'm always Team Gough as well. And I appreciate you coming on, man. Let's tell the people again where they can see How to Treat Women and all your other films and projects that you have going on.
Well, absolutely. But before I do, it is a Dudes with Brews podcast. So I felt that it was incumbent on me to ask you a beer related question.
Sure.
And this one's sort of obscure because in Australia at the moment, the big trend in Australia is alcoholic ginger beer. That seems to be the number one thing. In fact, a lot of bars here are taking cider off tap and putting on alcoholic ginger beer on tap instead of cider. So I was just wondering if you've had much to do with alcoholic ginger beer, if you approve of it, because here a lot of people either love it or they hate it, and your general thoughts on that kind of a concept. Yeah, because I can't believe that. You can go to the bar now and buy like a jug or a pitcher of alcoholic ginger beer like you would, a regular beer.
Yeah, I don't know that I've had. That's not really like a big thing here that I know of. The thing that's really taking off that I see a lot of like craft breweries, like the microbrews making, is seltzer. So I don't know if that's the same thing. I don't think it is, but like the hard seltzer, like like the White Claws. So like Bud Light now has a seltzer, and then I was recently at a craft beer festival a couple weeks ago, and a couple of the local breweries they're now introducing their line of seltzer. So that's what's really picking up, and you'll see people, instead of drinking the beers, they're drinking the flavored seltzers. So they're like mango and kind of fruitier flavors. They're okay, but
I was going to say, do you like them? Are you a fan?
I've had them a couple times. If you want, because sometimes some of the beers I drink, like the IPAs and stuff, those things just fill you up really quick. So if you want, if you're trying to go for a night or whatever, maybe I'd squeeze one in. But I'm not a huge fan of them. But people seem to really be leaning on them here. It's weird.
No, that hasn't made its way over here at the moment. It's all about alcoholic ginger beer. That seems to be the big craze, and everybody, like I say, bars are even putting it on tap and like getting rid of cider. So cider obviously doesn't sell anymore, and the alcoholic ginger beer does. So it just seems like it's just happened in the last 6 months or so. I mean, I don't mind. I mean, it just tastes like ginger beer, but it gets you drunk real quick because it's usually pretty strong. So, I mean, if you like ginger beer, you're going to enjoy it, but it's not, it just tastes like soft drink, It's just a soda, really, isn't it? But yeah.
Yeah, they have a couple things like that too, like the hard sodas and stuff like that. And I don't really like those that much because I think it just tastes too like boozy.
Yes.
But yeah, the seltzers are just super hot here. So yeah, if you ever look up White Claw, you'll see. I mean, some bars even have White claw machines. Forgot,
Wow.
It's really taken off, and that's probably the more popular one is a White Claw. But yeah, a lot of breweries, like I said, are now making their own renditions of them, their own versions of them, because you kind of see more ladies drinking the seltzers a little bit. So a lot of times when you go to these breweries, it's all these kind of like hipster dudes looking to try all these different beers, and if they're with a lady or something like that, they might not necessarily like the beers, or they don't want to have that many, so they'll lean towards the seltzer.
I get you. Well, it's just good marketing to get guys in with their dates, isn't it? So yeah, that's what it's about. Just good marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll try. The next time I go to one of my favorite breweries, I'll try theirs and see how it is. But for the most part, they're just, I don't know, they're okay.
Because there are a lot of, it's the same here in regards to craft breweries. There's a lot that have sort of sprung up in the last 2 or 3 years. It's a big thing now. And some of them are really delicious. I mean, you go there and you try some of their beers and they're really, really yum, and you think to yourself, wow, if they could just get this into a few different pubs and clubs, I mean, they'd be really kicking some goals, because there's some really lovely beers out there if people just take the time to, do a little bit of a research and, walk down the street instead of just going to their local pub. If they just walk down the road an extra mile or two and hit a local craft brewery, support a bit of local business. It's a cool thing.
Yeah, I agree. And especially in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin's kind of like the beer drinking capital of the United States. And for better and worse, but yeah, breweries are everywhere, and the one struggle that we find with the podcast is trying to find craft breweries outside of the state of Wisconsin that distribute to Wisconsin.
Yes.
Because, a lot of times we have a lot of listeners all over the place that don't necessarily have access to the Wisconsin breweries that we do, because a lot of them only stick within Wisconsin. They don't distribute outside the state because there's so much competition. So it's I always tried my best to find the beers that are from different states, so then maybe some other people can enjoy it with us, or look for them with us. But when I find a good one in Wisconsin, I'm going to drink it on the podcast and talk about it, because I have access to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why you're the dudes with brews. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We do our best. We do our best to spread the wealth. But we do love Wisconsin, and we do love beer. So
as those people who follow you on Instagram, because like I do, I follow you on Instagram, and I remember the post that you did from there was one about I reckon about a month ago. Like an expo that you guys went to, and there was some very funny posts on Instagram, video posts that you guys put up. So if people don't follow you guys on Instagram, they should, because there's some nice posts getting put up there on occasion.
Yeah, there's good ones on there, and then I have another Instagram called Me Runsies. I've been running a lot lately, and I always wear a pair of MeUndies when I do it because I love MeUndies, and so there's posts of me in my underwear and in my running tracks and stuff. So I try to hello ladies, just form an orderly queue, Yeah, just flaunting my stuff a little bit.
I like it a lot. But yeah, well, Beernuts Productions, of course, is all over social media like you guys are. So I mean, if people are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, just type in Beernuts Productions and we come up, and like I said earlier, just beernutsproductions.com is the website, and that's the only place you can download the films. They're not available anywhere else. So, yeah, just beernutsproductions.com is the only website address people need to know to hook up all of our Hilarity, the new film, and all of our other work as well.
Yeah, and I strongly recommend that everybody goes and does it and supports you, and supports independent art, independent film. You're guaranteed to give them laughs and enjoyment, and I've loved all the work that you've done so far, and I really appreciate you coming back on here again and being our most recurring guest here. So I think we gotta keep this momentum going, and we're always willing to have you on anytime you got a project or anytime you just want to chat, man.
Oh, I really appreciate that. No, it's always a pleasure chatting with you as well, Drew. I really do enjoy it, and I just echo your thoughts. Hopefully people download a copy of the film and they enjoy it as much as you did. Absolutely.
Beernutsproduction.com, the place you need to be to check out the latest film, How to Treat Women. Gough, it's always a pleasure, man. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Drew. Thank you.
Pew, pew! Audio. Goodbye, everyone.